Welcome to the HARN Summer Search Series for this evening. I am Crystal Garcia, the Regional Recruitment Counselor for the University of South Alabama, who is based in Houston, Texas.
And hi, I'm Shanna Castillo, Assistant Director of Admission for Rice University.
Today we're going to present on the best practices for polishing your college application, specifically focusing on tips for apps, essays, and resumes. We are going to cover a wide array of information in a short period of time. We will not be able to go in depth for each of these areas that we are going to cover today, instead focusing on tips. For more in-depth information pertaining to each area, please check out our HARN YouTube channel. Also, please ask any questions you may have in the chat box. Before diving into tips for your college applications, we would like to make everyone aware of the various types of college applications. First, there's the Apply Texas application. This consists of colleges and universities within the state of Texas. There are nearly 60 schools on this platform. Here, you can upload an essay, pay your fee, and establish in-state residency. The Common App is going to be the most common app, but just a little joke there. But really, the Common App is the most popular application since colleges and universities across the nation and within the state of Texas utilize this platform. There are nearly 900 schools, including some colleges located outside the U.S. Here, you can upload your transcripts, essays, test scores, fee or fee waivers, and everything can be submitted electronically in one package to multiple institutions. The Coalition app lets students create a locker where you can submit digital media that ranges from photos, videos, and anything that a specific school requires. The Coalition app consists of 150 schools. Also, there are some individual institutional applications. Hypothetically, there are schools that you can apply through Common App or through their website. This serves students through their own individual institutional portal, where you can upload documentation and check your application status. For example, at South, we are on the Common App, as well as we have our own institutional app through our website. I recommend applying through our website for quicker processing, but each institution is going to be different. In this case, we recommend checking with your admission counselor. My colleague will now talk about the last two listed.
So some states may have a state application. For example, we're familiar with, in Texas, we use the Apply Texas application for a lot of schools. Same thing for other states, such as California. They have the Cal State Apply application as well. So that's an example there. The QuestBridge application, you can find that through questbridge.org, and Rice is one of the first universities to be a QuestBridge partner. So QuestBridge was founded in 1994, and it's a national nonprofit organization that aims to increase the percentage of talented low-income students attending the nation's best colleges and to support them to achieve success in their careers and communities. QuestBridge partner colleges are highly selective research universities and liberal arts colleges in the United States, and you can find a list of the college partners on their website as well. So we recommend you choose the application that will best fit your needs. The institution you're applying to, how many schools, how many you'll be applying to. So use what will benefit you the best.
So no matter which application you choose to fill out your information, be sure to read, reread, and fill out the form thoroughly. For example, write your last name where it says last name, not your first. It sounds silly, but this is a common mistake that will either get you mixed up with another student or invalidates your application and slows down the review process, hence slowing down when you will receive a decision. So be sure to fill out the correct information the first time, as well as for when the application asks for dates, such as birthdays, be sure to fill out 02 instead of the word February, and so on. If you do not have a social security number, here you can simply put 9 zeros and your application could be submitted. Of course, fill out your social security number if you do have one. I also recommend putting NA, which stands for non-applicable, in areas in the application where you do not have information. For example, if you do not have an apartment number or if you're not a veteran, etc. This lets the institution know that you have filled out the form and we are not left guessing if it was submitted incomplete, hence making the review process run smoothly. Now, the demographic data. Ask for information about your parents and siblings, ranging from their surname, country of birth, to college, if any. It is imperative that you do not leave this information blank, as we use this information to track students that are first generation, meaning that you are the first to attend college, or if your parents graduated from said institution. There are various scholarships and programs regarding these types of relationships that differ per school. Underneath the sibling selection sections, it asks for age and grade. Be sure to use the and symbol to separate this section as requested. Now, you're going to see a lot of differentiation between weighted and unweighted. The main difference between the two is that weighted GPAs take into account the difficulty of your coursework and unweighted GPAs don't. Most unweighted GPAs are recorded on a scale of 0 to 4.0, and most weighted GPAs are recorded on a scale from 0 to 5.0. Sometimes your high school will use an unweighted class rank, but a weighted GPA. Check with your high school counselor for accuracy. Also, if your GPA is 97.8, be sure to put the scale of 100 or whichever the amount is. We review applications from across the nation and internationally. Don't ever assume that we know. We only know what you put on your application. Now, regarding rank, there are some high schools that have 1,200 schools, and there's some schools that have 12 students. If your school does not rank, then put NA, which means not applicable, instead of leaving it blank, so that we are aware that your school does not rank instead of just leaving it blank and up for interpretation. The application allows you to fill out your ACT or SAT exam dates and scores. Only fill out this information if you know the accurate scores. If you fill out this information wrong or incorrectly and we see that you lied, some schools will admit your admission. The caveat of this is superscoring. For example, say you take the test in July or September and you get a higher score in March or May. We will consider those scores for admission and scholarships. If a university superscores, this means that we take your highest subset and make one overall super composite. If you do not know your correct ACT or SAT score, then just leave it blank and send your official test scores through College Board. Include your AP and IB subject test scores, whether or not you've earned a score that gets you college credit, because this lets us know that you have applied and challenged yourself with these higher level rigorous courses. As I mentioned, some scores allow for you to qualify your college credit, all depending per school. But we do not know about your test scores unless you list them on your application.
And just to also take into consideration, some of the schools you may be applying to may have gone test optional, so check their admission website.
And the extracurricular activities and work experience section of the application, it is imperative that you list your activities in order of importance to you. This can range from organization, clubs, to volunteer or work experience. Maybe you babysat your siblings, or how did you spend time outside of the classroom during high school, and what was most important to you? Was it Boy Scouts, the drama club, maybe it was FFA? Were you the founder of a club? Let us know. Remember, many admission counselors are reading many applications, so make yours stand out to us. Now, where it says list principal activities, only elaborate on activities that are not self-explanatory. For example, you can simply list National Honor Society, treasurer, drama club, president. We all know what that is, but briefly elaborate on the key club or a volunteer experience, something where it's not common knowledge. Again, be sure to be brief. Leave more elaboration on your attached resume. As we mentioned in the beginning of the presentation, we can talk for hours and workshop for days about crafting your academic resume. Here, we are focusing on polishing tips to enhance your resume. So first, depending per institution, an attached resume is not required, but if optional, fill it out. It will only help your application. Having one readily available will help you to apply for more scholarship considerations and some honors college consideration. Worth repeating, list activities in order of importance to you, whether it's your honors, sports, clubs, volunteer, or work experiences. We do not know about it unless you tell us. Always check with the university that you are applying to see if they have certain requirements. Be detailed and be consistent. The attached resume allows you to explain and elaborate beyond the application. The resume also allows you to be creative, so feel free to add a photo or graphics or maybe some colors. Either way, be consistent with how you list your information. Utilize bold, italics, bullet points, whichever route you decide to go, just be sure you're consistent. Your resume will predominantly consist of how you spend your time in high school. So don't discount your middle school achievements such as Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, FFA, dancing, swimming, etc. There are some things that have transferred over from middle school to high school. So just let us know the longevity of those programs. Simply Google or use Word resume templates for inspiration. Also, check out our resume video on the HARN YouTube channel for an example of a resume format. The resume will not be the final decision factor on your academic decision, but it gives us a preview on how you will potentially impact our college or university. Also, it allows us to get to know you beyond your scores and grades. Now, I'm not going to go in depth here, but I wanted to illuminate all of the various possibilities that you can include in your resume. For example, a hobby or interest can consist of crocheting, or maybe you built a computer from scratch. Do you write comic books for fun? Are you a big part of your church, or do you speak multiple languages? Did you shadow a doctor or conduct a faculty-led independent research experience? There's so much more that you can include that stretches beyond traditional clubs and sports. Say you are a freshman or junior in high school. Say you're even a senior in high school and you're looking at this list thinking, I haven't even started yet. It's okay. You can start your senior year. And if you are an underclassman, I would recommend creating a Google Doc to start keeping track of everything you're involved in and keep track of the hours and years, timeframes, and any positions you may have held. The application will ask you the hours you spent, so be sure to keep track or estimate accordingly.
Wonderful. So now we're going to transition and talk about honors and award tips. And so first, many of the strategies that Crystal went over for describing activities on the application do also apply for the honors and awards section as well. Just as activities should be ranked according to their prestige and your degree of involvement, honors should be listed with the most competitive and well-recognized awards first. And so you can see here how I've listed international, national, state, district, and regional. And we want you to make sure that when you are putting in the descriptions, because you are limited to a small box for the description, make your descriptions brief but impactful. So there's about 100 word or character limit that you can make describing these awards, and it's not very easy with that many characters or little characters. So in order for these brief descriptions to be as impactful as possible, we recommend quantifying the value of the award to the greatest degree possible. So include the technical qualifications for the honor or award, the number of students in the group from which the honorees were selected, and the number of honorees. This is especially helpful for local awards with admission committees where they're less familiar with some of the local awards that you may have gotten. But you can also emphasize the competitiveness and the large scale awards as well. And definitely limit your acronyms. I know some people know FBLA is for Future Business Leaders of America, but maybe they don't. So even though it's a perfect solution to because of the constriction of the character limits, avoid using them. So make sure you spell it all out as best you can. Be clear, be effective with each of the descriptions and your awards. All right, so I'm going to go to the next slide here. All right. So next, some tips for polishing your essay. So you may have all kinds of great ideas and examples of things you want to include in your essay. Store those ideas in one place, somewhere outside of your brain, so when the inspiration hits you, whether it's in the bathroom, in the car, on a hike, wherever you are, you'll have a place to capture it and come back to it later when you need it. Because every time I've worked with students and they're like, yeah, I've got a great idea. I'm like, where are your notes? And they're like, oh, it's all in my head. And then when it comes time to write the essay, they're like, I had all these great ideas, but I've kind of forgotten some of them. So your writing should provide some kind of context within which the reader learns about who you are and what has brought you to this stage in your life. Try to tie your account into how this has made you develop as a person, a friend, a family member, or leader, or really any role in your life that is important to you. You may also want to make a connection to how this has inspired some of your educational journey or your future aspirations. So think about these things. What is your hook? What is going to make me stand out in this essay? And what do you, as a student, want the admission officers to know about you through reading this? So the next one here, be specific and personal. An example is when you were a young kid, you loved books since you were 9 years old, and that's why you want to be a librarian. That's great. That gives us a detail, tells us why you want to become a librarian. But you could also give a little bit more details. When I was 9 years old, I received my very first set of Nancy Drew books. And ever since then, I've been obsessed with books and wanting to share my passion for how books can reach everybody, no matter what stage of life they're in. That gives us a little bit more energy, a little bit more details, which kind of gives a little oomph to that part of the essay. So be detailed, be specific, and make it personal. Number 4, tell a good story. Make sure the story is uniquely yours. So we want to know more about you. Captivate the reader's attention inside a great narrative. And then not finally, but this is the last point for this slide, is get prepared now. You have plenty of time to brainstorm. Carry that notebook around with you. Write down your ideas. And once you have all these ideas, that's when you can sit down and really write your first draft. And then after you've written your first draft, definitely have eyes read over it. Maybe a sibling, a teacher, a neighbor, a counselor, a friend, your parents, and have them read it to kind of give you some tips and maybe some examples to add in that maybe you need to elaborate more on. So use your resources that you have around you at home. So next, additional tips here, and these are really do's and don'ts. And I put the source at the bottom, and you can Google JLV Counseling website. So some of the do's are to talk about some of your red flags on the additional information section of the application. So some students may have like a C that they had one semester on their application, and then when we're as admission counselors, we're reading your application, we're like, there was a C here, but the counselor didn't mention anything in the letter of recommendation, the teacher didn't mention anything. Well, how are we supposed to know if something happened? Maybe there was something going on in your life. The additional information section of the application is where you do talk about these red flags on your application. Also, do answer any questions that an admission officer may have about your application. So not just on the academics, but maybe on your activities. Maybe you don't have a lot of activities on there and it could be due to transportation. Let us know that. Next, do include anything on an application that an admission officer may want to know about you, not just about the application, but you specifically. So if you have a special talent, if you have a special connection to your passion in your activities or in your prospective major, make sure that message comes through. And if not, the additional information section is where you can put that information. Do talk to your counselor if you're unsure of what to write about in this section. So now I'm going to move on to the don'ts. So don't repeat information that has already been included somewhere else on the application, whether it was your activities, your resume, your honors. This may be an area where you can expand a little bit on something that was already mentioned, but if you have said everything in the other section, don't repeat it again in the additional information section. Also, don't blame others. I've actually read some sections from students who have blamed a teacher for their bad grade, and that didn't really sit well with me, and it may also not sit well with other admission counselors. So try to avoid blaming others for any inconsistencies or things that you may be trying to explain on the additional information section. And then also, don't write a whole other essay. We have limited time to read these applications. And if you have written a third or fourth or whatever essay this may become, it makes this harder for us to move forward with the application with enough time to really put some of our time into these other details that could really make your application shine. All right. And so here, I'm going to talk a little bit about the institutional supplemental questions tip. So first of all, you need to prioritize and strategize. So how you want to approach your essays in general, you have to come up with a plan that works for you. Some students may start with the supplemental questions, while others may start with the application essay, more known as the personal statement essay, but it's really up to you. But even before that, you should look up the admission requirements for each college because not all colleges are going to have supplemental questions. So if you have your college list of like 4 to 6 colleges and you look at on their admission website and you find out that none of these schools have supplemental questions, then lucky you, that's one less thing for you to do. But for those students who are applying to schools that may have a few additional supplemental questions, look those up on the admission website and prepare for those. And then that's when you need to prioritize and strategize to make sure that you are tackling them in a way that is comfortable for you. The third one here is do your research in advance and be specific. So these questions are very school specific. So you want to make sure that you do your research on the college and that you use that knowledge from your research to answer these questions. And I'm going to give you some of the typical example of the supplemental questions. So one of the typical questions in the supplement is typically, why do you wish to study this major? So if you're like, I want to become a librarian, the example I gave in the earlier slides, uh, that is one way where you can add more detail to answer this question. The second one, why are you applying to this college? Well, if you haven't done any research on the college or you haven't found any things that are very eye-catching to you about this college on why you're applying, it may be harder for you to apply that knowledge to write this essay. The more you know and the more you feel connected to the university because of these details, that will give you more to write about in this type of essay. And then finally, the third typical question is, what life perspectives would you contribute to XYZ college community? And so a lot of students get stumped with this. And so I'm kind of putting it out there now so that you can think about these things. You know what would I contribute to this college if I became a student here? And so if you can find ways that you can connect yourself to what you like about the school and learn about them, you could find some of these things that you could be as a contributor to this university. And so this is a great way to do your research first and then tackle some of these supplemental questions. All right. And so I'm going to go on to the next slide here. And this is information. And I know we're going to be doing some questions pretty soon.
Y'all did such a good job. Thank you so much, Shanna and Crystal. And also thank you so much to all of our participants who asked so many Really, really, really good questions.